Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Pedophile Huntress. We're here with a common goal that you be encouraged in heart and united in love. We hope to bring an intervention in the areas of your life that you're struggling with. We've all been there, we've lived it, and we understand. We welcome you with us tonight. Tonight's discussion is about family relationships. We want to talk about the first steps that you take with siblings and parents, what the boundaries look like with family coming through incest, how our relationships have progressed and where they are today. And if we have time, we'd like to talk about the medication that we've all taken and try, what that looks like to help our brains, to the reluctance about using depressants and different drugs that were offered and the positive differences that they make. So with that, we're going to just jump right in and start this conversation. I know I said in another time on my YouTube channel, I put up, tell us what you want to talk about. And of course, family relationships always come up. I had this really cool interview. If you didn't hear it, it was Russell Stagg. He is a licensed therapist in Canada, and it was so good. But he talked about the incest with his mother. He's just coming out. He helps men all the time. Well, I think he's talked about it for several years. But one of the things that he said to me was, I don't understand all of my people that I counsel with, and they're all men who mostly, like he gives you the stats, most of them have been abused by their mother. They don't want to break these bonds with a family. And so I asked him what he did, and he said, I wrote my mother a letter when I was in my 30s, and I never saw her again. She died, and I never saw her, and I don't regret that. But I see that my patients struggle with this. So you guys, talking about what that looks like to first put in place, right before we started this episode tonight, I just want to tell the listener, each one of us has had some uncomfortable family dealings in the recent days. And so we're going to actually talk about that. But putting boundaries in place, Carol, you go ahead and start. What did that look like and I know that we've talked about this before on these, but it's really hard. And talk about baby steps, right? Like when I thought back in my own life, they were very small baby steps. Like I kept going to dinner, I kept hanging out with them until I couldn't. So what did that look like for you? And, to put these kind of relational boundaries in place?
Um, I think, I am the one who had complete amnesia of it until I was
Yes.
36. But going up to that, things were not working with the family. They were not working with my father at all. And so there were other family things going on. But when I realized what had happened and that he'd been molesting me all these years
Mhm.
as a child, that was it. I knew in a heartbeat I didn't want anything to do with him again in my life, and I didn't. However, I didn't say anything. I don't think it was at least 6, 9 months
Mhm.
before I wrote him a letter with my therapist. Kind of looking over it, and I can remember writing this letter, and it kind of went on, and I told the therapist, this isn't right, or, it's not everything I need to say. And she kept saying, Carol, just put it in the mail. It's never going to
Mhm.
be perfect. Just do it. And I can remember
Yes, yes.
shaking, putting this letter in the mail because I knew it was all
Mhm.
over. I knew, this would never be the same again. And it was, it was, I was just shaking. The grief is enormous.
Mhm. It is.
The loss,
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say
fear.
it's never going to be the same because you know what we
Yeah.
know, you guys? The truth is, when you're living in denial, you're living in denial and your family is. I think this is something that is interesting for us to talk about is when people respond to us, they don't want their denial to be messed with. And so we
No.
know that our speaking reality, speaking the truth, not our truth, but the truth, because there's a big difference between I can't stand when
Yeah.
I hear you can have your truth. You know what? F that. We're talking about the facts here. These are factual things. So when you sent that letter, did you send it to the whole family? Did you just send it to your
No, I
father?
just sent it to my father. By that
Okay.
time, I have three siblings. They were out of the house, well out of the house by then. But and I immediately got a letter back saying, I don't know what you're talking about, or you must be
Mhm.
mentally ill. This
Of
is,
course.
you're
Nuts or
lying.
sluts.
Yeah. And immediately telling me you're lying. How could you say this? And then the story began. I mean, it was just constant, and that's all I ever heard from him. He never once came around and said, yes, I molested you. Oh, I'm sorry, nothing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
my advice is that don't expect it. It's not
Mhm.
going to come. And he didn't die till he was 97. And even on his
Wow.
deathbed, absolutely nothing. So,
Carol,
you know,
preparing for this tonight, the one thing right before we got on, do you know what I thought in my heart? They don't change. We want to believe that these people change, but they're so given over by the time that they've walked into this, particularly when it's incest. I just really believe that, what you just said. It's funny. I thought the same thing coming into this. These people don't change, but we hold out
no.
the hope that they will. We
Mhm.
really do. I
Yes.
think that when we first send these letters, our hope is reconciliation. But
Hmm.
the problem is I've never really seen a great story about reconciliation. In
No.
fact, you guys, I have an interview with a lady next month that says her father and she are reconciled and that he was a pastor when he raped her, but now he's still a pastor. And I can't wait for this interview. I'm trying really hard not to think bullshit.
Yes. I'd
Anyway,
really like to. Yeah. Is
I
that a
know.
healthy decision on her part? I mean,
I'm so anxious. I'm really
you know,
anxious for this. So anyway, we're going to
yeah.
stop there because I'm hard pressed to see that they change. But now, Emily, I want to hear in your family, what did that look like for you? Who did you reach out to? Was it a letter? Was it a call? What did that look like?
Well, first I talked with my sister when everything was really falling apart for me, which was
Mm.
like around 2008, 2010, around there. I actually flew to my sister's home, sat down on the couch
Oh,
with her. I wanted to confide in her. I wanted her to hear me out, and I wanted to see if anything had happened to her because, nothing was
Mhm.
ever talked about. And
right.
I was done with that. I wanted to start healing in our family. And that didn't go very well. She's very bonded to my parents.
Mm.
And the first thing she said was, well, I think mom and dad will believe you. That was what
Mhm.
she said, which is interesting, but
Right.
that's not really like the response that my heart was
Can I
craving.
give you a hug? Are you
Right. Like,
okay?
I'm
How
so
long
sorry
did
this
this go
happened to
on?
Yes. I'm
you. Like,
so
Right.
sorry this
Yes. How
yeah.
many years
happened to
So,
did this
you.
man rape you? Like,
right. So the thing is that
wow.
that's just like evidence of the
Hmm.
mentality. I don't know.
Yes.
It's a way of the family system. So that was rocky. I was relieved because she said nothing had ever happened to her. But I think I was really coming at it from the place of a child. I was not mature in my own adult self yet. So I was still really deferring to my parents and I trusted them at that time.
Yes.
And not for good reason, but because of
Right.
all of the conditioning. So, um, with my sibling, I tried to stay connected with her, but over time, I just realized that she was not going to be a safe, kind person for me for many reasons. And, I think I've talked about it before of the progression of me trying to work with my
Hmm.
parents and talk with them and them kind of trying to act contrite in the way that they should, but not ever
Hmm.
talking about it with anybody else, not ever
Hmm.
really taking any action, meaningful action. In
Right.
terms of boundaries, I set strong boundaries and they did respect them, which is good. They did respect them. And my sister has respected my boundaries but it's been a slow progression of building a safe space for myself, which has
Right.
taken a lot of trial and error, like trying to be in relationship and then it just not going well, and then trying again in a different, more guarded way, and then just realizing I didn't have the capacity to do that anymore, and I was just getting hurt, and I was scared for my daughter, and
See, and that, right. And you said so many things in there that
Yes.
I kind of, right. I want to
okay, I'll
dissect.
stop.
Well, no, no, and it's okay. I want to dissect a few things. And Carol, you also, one of the things you said, and I think this is very right on point. When we start trying to heal, we really usually are young in the process, right? And we're less experienced with what this is going to look like. We're coming at it from a place of dysfunction. We're coming at it from a place of trauma bonding. We are unsure of ourselves, right? Because when we're early in our stories, we aren't yet as strong as an advocate as we will be, 20 years down the road. So all of these things I think are important to remember that in the beginning, it is an immature beginning, right? Carol, what were you thinking?
Yeah, no, that kind of hit me real hard. Like, yeah, childlike place.
Yep,
Absolutely. That
exactly.
you're still in that, oh, I hope mommy and daddy
Mhm.
are going to be there for me.
Yep.
Because I need them so desperately. I mean, you can't even picture your life without your parents and, siblings. I thought my siblings, they found out, probably a year after I remembered, um, waiting that long, mainly because I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the upheaval in my life.
Right.
And you're praying that they're going to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Like we said, like
Right.
Mhm,
I have never heard
Mm-hmm.
that in going on 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think it becomes more of a grieving for the loss of
mhm,
your family. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of like if somebody died, you don't really get over it. You learn to live with it, but you don't completely get over it. They're just too strong of relationships. But yeah, I think I was extremely
Mm-hmm.
childlike and crying and not aware of my own power or how far I would have to go to set up boundaries.
Right.
Right, you can't even imagine you'd be able to do this when you're starting. You're just in, so much shock and what the heck is going on, and so
Right.
I mean, that's my perspective, but yeah,
No,
it's a very
and
childlike spot that you
it
come
is.
from.
And the
Yeah.
other thing that you said, Emily, that I guess I've never thought about it. Now I have, but the way you said it, it struck me. So we make these boundaries, and you know what you said? And they really stood by them. Can I tell you why I think they do? They don't want us around because it makes their lives uncomfortable. When we're somewhere else, they don't have to think about their denial.
mhm,
They don't have to think about their lack of accountability. They don't have to think about their own shame. And they get to go on with a pretend make believe life that they've created to make their world
Hmm.
okay. So usually, if you put a boundary in place, people aren't going to like this, which is usually why we'll reach back through that boundary and talk to them. Have you guys ever done that? Because I have. I put a really strong boundary in place, then I don't hear from
Yeah.
anybody. Then I want to hear from them. Like, doesn't anybody care? Doesn't, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like, mom, stop by and just say hi for a minute. Then she does. And I'm completely a wreck for a while because she deposits all of her disgusting toxic stuff when she's there. Now I don't do that anymore, but I did because
Hmm.
they respected the boundary. And you know what I think? I think it's easier for them. What do you guys think
mhm,
about that?
Absolutely easier for them. The family is a system and they want to, yeah, they do not want to know this. Don't,
Well, they do
nobody
know it,
wants
but
to
they don't
deal
want to
with
talk
this.
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those bones, you guys, it's rattling in their head. There's no
Yes.
way they don't know. They know.
They know.
And
Hmm.
you know what I
yeah,
mean? Because Emily, you went to your mother when you were younger. She
mhm,
knew. You
mhm,
don't forget those kind of conversations with your
no,
kids. I'm sorry, you do not forget for a
no.
lifetime.
No.
And I
So
go
I
ahead.
agree with you that I think all of it, me leaving the family as a whole, is way easier for them.
Yep. Yep.
Much easier.
Well, then you're the crazy one. You're the one that can't
Mhm.
deal. You're the one that has to
And
make all
so
these
I'm
hard lines.
I'm the one that basically everything gets put on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just have to live with it. And it is there's a whole lot of grief because it just continues and continues.
Right.
It's still the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I
And I
want to,
think,
oh, go ahead,
go
Carol.
ahead.
No,
No,
you
I
go.
just think, like what you were talking about, Jody, when somebody comes over and visits, even after you set up boundaries and you're upset for days, they're
Mhm.
probably not meant to be in your life.
Exactly.
Right.
And
I mean,
that's
this
what
is
you
a
learn.
real flag because I
Mhm.
saw that too. Like,
Mhm.
I'd see them or I'd
Mhm.
see my father somewhere, and I mean, it just sent me in a tailspin. So,
And see, and let's talk about some of that for a minute, because one of the things I think that's really important for people to remember is, as healing is our lifetime, so are dealing with family relationships and coming out of them. Some people are
mhm.
really good at it. Like Russell, he said, I sent my mom a letter and I never wanted to see her again. She abused him sexually for years and years, and he had to do child porn. She would drop him off down at this
Oh,
local thing. He watched other
oh,
children be raped, which was horribly, so he's sought justice his whole life. Like, he'll watch these movies where women receive justice and he'll say, I'll cry for days because I
Mhm.
watched a little girl be raped and I couldn't do anything.
oh.
For him, that was a very good interview. If you guys didn't listen to that,
It
you
I'm
was
should.
gonna
excellent.
listen.
He's
I
a
want to meet that
remarkable, that
guy.
guy is a cool guy.
Russell, if you're listening, you're awesome.
I know. And you guys, it'd be cool maybe
Yeah.
if we had him back and if we all did kind of a panel interview with him after. Go listen to that and let's ask him if he'd come back. He's a cool advocate, and very few men have
Yes.
the deep understanding that he has. And like, he
Mhm.
gives you the stats and he says, you guys, little boys are being abused as much and as
Mhm.
frequent as little girls are. You guys just don't want to hear it. And I agree with him, but men don't talk about it. But that's another thing. But yes, Russell, we'd love to have you back on. You're amazing. So I want us to talk about stories, because I believe that storytelling helps people relate. Like, when
Mhm.
they hear a story that you tell, they're like, oh, that happened to you too. Or all of a
Hmm.
sudden, right, we become friends, or you give them this. So
Mhm.
I'm going to start with a story, and then I want to hear, we're going to talk about some real stories about what this looks like in family. You guys know that my father murdered someone in 1968.
Hmm.
My father's brother was there the evening he came home, and he's a diabetic. They have to throw him in a bathtub. He goes to the hospital for a week. Anyway, I believe very much that all the people in that scenario knew what happened in
Oh.
1968. So the other day, I have my publisher, I send a book to my aunt, his wife, and I put an inscription page, and I say, I'm not going to say her name. And all I say is, please consider doing the right thing. That's it. I send it out, and it takes a while to come from your publisher, right? I see, and I'm at work, actually. I'm at the doctor's office, but I'm looking at my work email, and my cousin's name comes along. I have not seen my cousin in 20 years. I haven't seen anybody at my father's funeral. They all pulled her away from me and walked away from me, and I've never seen the family since. Her name comes through, and my heart's excited. And I think,
Hmm.
wow, this is so cool. She wants to talk to me about this. I listened to the voicemail because I wasn't there. It was scathing. She called me chicken shit. She told me I was hiding behind my book. What could we do for him? That I have bugged them for decades. You guys, this is a murder investigation. Okay. I'm not, but anyway, I was up all night long. Then she found my cell number. To call my work, called my receptionist and said, tell Jody this is a family emergency. Find her wherever she is. So now the receptionist is trying to hunt me down.
Oh my
This
gosh.
was
Oh, I'm so sorry.
unbelievable. But I think, really, you guys, this was a murdered. I just can't. And her
Mhm.
reaction, though, was so, to me, outrage. I don't even understand it.
Mhm.
I don't even understand. What's the
Yep.
anger? What is this
Mhm.
Absolutely.
anger at us? So now, you guys, that's enough. But anyway, I was up all night long because it bothered me
Mhm.
so greatly,
Mhm.
because
Of
that's all
course.
it was. I hadn't talked to him in 20 years, one time in 20 years. Now, the cops have probably called my uncle. The private investigators have called my uncle. I haven't. But the point
That
is,
was her father. Did I
yeah,
get this
it
right?
was her
This was
Yeah.
her
yeah, yes.
father.
And she happened to be there when the book came in, and her mother and father opened
Oh,
it.
got
So
it.
she said,
Okay.
what do you think my family knows? Blah, blah, blah. So anyway, these things, you guys, they come out of the currents, right? Like this has been 20 years I haven't talked to these
Years.
people. And that's the response I get
Yeah.
instead of, wow, I'm sorry, this is still a burden to you. We really don't know how to help you.
Yeah.
What is this weird shutdown anger? Immediately I thought, why is that a hornet's nest? But talk to me, you guys, about an instance in your life. What does that look like? Because it's crazy to me, these reactions are so strong. Can't we just
Mm-hmm.
chat?
Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable. And I have this situation going where my three cousins that are my generation have listened to their mother, who's my dad's brother,
See.
aunt,
Mhm.
and they're completely against me and the
Yep.
book and
Yep.
it's just never been the same. And you think, really, you're listening to your 92-year-old mother about this
Yep.
subject and you believe her? I mean, it's
We're
just,
all talking about the same thing. And so this
yeah,
family unit has clearly come against me. And
Mm-hmm.
so she was calling
yes,
me
because they're all
and
talking about it.
they're all talking. And she said,
They
of
talked
course
20
we know.
years about it.
You know what? I couldn't believe it because I said, do you even know the story? We all know the story. I
See?
am not calling them back and subjecting to myself. And anybody
No.
on this
Mm-hmm.
call, my husband did call her back and say, if
Right.
you call her work again, that's harassment. Jody did not harass you guys. Throw the book away if you don't want to read it.
Yeah.
But I do want to say on this call, I would tell you not to go under the authority of abusive family. Do not let them talk abusively to you. Don't do it. And
No.
I told her I have no obligatory commitment to respond to you. She said, "What do you want?" I told her, I said, I think, if they know anything, it'd be wonderful. Your mother, if there was anybody that was going to talk in your family, she would. I'm just trying. I have that goal in my heart to have this woman's life fixed. And then I
Yeah.
blocked her number. But so, isn't it crazy? I think, Carol, you hit it on the mark. They do talk about us, but they won't talk to
Yes.
us about it.
Right. Well, we're the designated bad one.
We
We
are. Oh,
become the
that's so true.
designee, and then all the shame and all the,
Yep.
angst goes on us, and it's all our fault. I've
Yep.
heard that very clearly, that it's completely my fault what's happened to the family. It's just
Wow.
unbelievable. And,
Mhm.
it's unbelievable. I mean, Jody, you've got this enormous crime
Mm-hmm.
horror show that's unresolved. I
Right.
mean, it's still
Right.
unresolved.
It is
And
unresolved.
and of course you're wanting to find out whatever you can. And and they're like, don't even talk about this. This never happened. Yeah.
Well,
You're just
she ends this great big long text after she calls me chicken shit and hiding behind a book. Now, if anybody's written a book about your family, it is the most vulnerable thing you'll
Mm-hmm.
ever do. It took me
Mhm.
20 years to write that book. 20 years. And I'll tell
Wow.
you, it was incredibly hard because it's so vulnerable to talk about these things. So chicken
Yeah.
shit, I take exception to that, but
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
would not
gonna
say that's the
I
last
am
thing
not
you
I
are.
am not gonna get into the ring with that kind of behavior. But
Mm-mm.
Well,
I
who
think
calls names anyway?
well,
Right.
actually, and my I didn't even really see that. But anyway, Emily, talk to me about like an experience you have. I think it's good for the listener to hear that this is what it really feels like when you stand against
Yeah.
your family, which is why I believe many people don't stand against their families.
Yeah,
So my
exactly.
family tends to not be as
Aggressive.
confrontational with me, but it's just as painful because it's
It is.
very passive and it's very painting the family as this perfect unit. And I think when I really started to feel it was I was going through so much grief and hardship in 2020, 2021,
Mhm.
and I I was in a really tough place. And my parents both knew that I was in a really tough place and they knew why. And it was, I was in a time of being apart from them in a relationship. But there was this group text that was going with the family. And it was supposed to be a group text to support each other during the pandemic. And my dad just proceeded to have it be joke after joke after joke after
Hmm.
joke. And he knew I was still on the thread. And I had asked my parents to not be in contact with me. I needed time to process and heal, and this was not going well. And we were going through a really hard time as a family. And I think that's an example of my family just not even caring, like not even caring at all. And then just wanting to go on as normal and smile and laugh it all
Yeah.
off and just
But see, that's
brush.
right. That's
Yeah,
ignoring
brush.
behavior.
Yes, it is ignoring behavior, and it's awful
Hmm.
because it just perpetuates a facade and brings attention to my parents in a way that makes them seem just like these,
Right.
jovial,
Right.
cheery
Mhm.
people, when really they're, you know, a pedophile and someone hiding a whole bunch of mess. So,
Exactly. And they're
it's
telling you through those text
Mhm.
messages not to
right.
talk about it. We
Exactly.
we
So
are
it's
absolutely ignoring this.
right.
But I
So that's the kind of thing I've experienced over and over, where there's
Mhm.
just this carrying on, even among the people I've talked to who have professed that they support me. There's still a carrying on of the family as if nothing has ever happened,
Happened.
and a lack of
Mhm.
willingness to even really engage with me in a meaningful way, for the most part, to even enter into the pain at all. And that's probably, I think that's the most painful, is just the level of betrayal that you
Mhm.
feel,
Mhm.
because many of my family members have helped me in other ways in my life. They've been there as a support. They've helped me in relationships and other things, but this is just so beyond what the family system can handle, that it's
And
almost
see
like
though,
no one can go there.
right, but this is what all families, because pedophiles hide in the secrets.
Mhm.
And so it's not that the family system can't handle it. It's that this family system won't handle it. My aunt
Mhm.
used to always say, don't say you can't, say you won't, because there's an
Hmm.
intentional choice in won't.
Mhm.
So to say you can't is not really true, because these
That is true.
families,
You
Yeah.
can.
they won't. They
Right.
can, they won't. Right,
Well,
Carol?
yeah,
And yeah,
you're right. And that's why I've left, because nothing
Yes.
is
yeah.
going to change, and it's only more and more and more painful. Hmm.
And I think this strongest thing we can do is say, look, I'm not doing this
Mhm.
at all
Hmm.
anymore. I used to, at the beginning, I'd try to go to a family wedding, try to go,
Mhm.
to memorial service, and kind of
Exactly.
still be in the fold, and then it was always awkward, and there was no honesty whatsoever about what was going on.
Right.
And it's almost like you as the victim are saying, oh, this is fine, I'll just play happy family
Right.
with all of you. And I think you have to make it very clear, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
I
Well,
am
and clear to myself, I'm
and
not doing
clear,
it
very
anymore.
good point. Very
Hmm.
good point.
Be-
Clear to you that you
Mhm.
do have the strength, as sad as it is, and as hard
Hmm.
as it is. So, yeah,
I think that's true, Carol. What you said to me, the way I looked at it was, when I had to go be around them, I could not be my authentic self. I had to
no,
leave myself outside, pick up the
yeah,
labels that they wanted me to be in the family, which again, I always was treated weird in the family anyway. I mean, I
mm-hmm,
think these families are so weird. Like, I think back, and they thought that my family always thought I was my father's favorite. Do you know what that favoritism was? I got raped until then. I was sodomized when I got older so that I couldn't get pregnant. Do you want that? Do you want to be his favorite? Because I'll
Hmm.
give it to
yeah,
you.
really,
I'll give it to you. And that's what I
mm-hmm,
always heard. Jody was dad's favorite. Really? Do you know what the cost of that was for me? But I mean,
mm-hmm,
isn't it weird how, like for you guys, think about that. What was our role in the family when we were there? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
they thought I was my father's favorite. What? Because I had to
And
sit
I
by him
kind
so
of
he could
was
rub
too.
my, you know what I mean? And he'd rub my leg all of my childhood. I hated sitting there, but I didn't have a choice. So talk to me
Yeah.
about that, Carol. What did you were your father's
Yeah, no,
favorite?
I think in some ways I was the favorite too. And I was the peacekeeper, I was the one to
Yep.
make sure we all got together and we all were happy and had holidays. And I
Yep.
was
Me
doing
too.
all of that, until a holiday when he threatened my daughter, my
Yes. And
four-year-old, to molest her. So,
yes.
yeah, it it's all very difficult, but it also don't ever forget what we've done to change the scenario for generations to come. This will
100%.
affect generations to come,
100%.
right? And
Yes, I agree. And we're going to talk about that. Emily, talk to me about where did you perceive yourself in the family? What was your kind of role to the family? I think it's interesting.
Yeah. So I got the clear message from my mother that I was a problem from the beginning,
Oh, of
that I was a
course.
mm,
sneaky liar, that
Ah,
wow,
I
wow,
yeah, she was distrustful of me from the time I was an infant, and she will tell stories about it.
what?
So
See,
that's
yeah,
I call
she
horse
is
shit on that. She's
that
trying
is
to find a way to blame
horrible.
you. What?
so yeah, so has she is very troubled and is not a good person at all. She's
No,
unkind and has been to me
100%.
from the very beginning in a very sneaky way. But I've always been the one that is sneaky, competitive storyteller, the one you don't trust. And my mom will say that. I mean,
Wow.
she said that to my husband when we were dating.
Wow.
So that's my mom's perception of me. Um, I have still not figured out my dad's perception of me. I wanted to please him. You know, he was my dad, and but at the same time I was pretty afraid of him because he's really unpredictable and really dangerous sometimes. Um so I would say with my sister, she thought I was a very high achiever academically. I was a very high achiever in everything in my life because I wanted to get myself out of my
Hmm.
family. I wanted to do well in
Hmm.
school. And so with my sister, she um, has told me it's hard to be your younger
Yeah,
sibling.
I have the
Hmm.
same thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then with the young man that was in our home, he just always made fun of me. He was the one who molested me for
Hmm.
ongoing. But he still, the last conversation I had with him, he was mocking me and mocking my efforts in education.
Wow.
So
And your
I was,
family actually has stood with that mockery. That was the
yes,
one thing that really I was the most upset with is I don't need my family's love. I really am far beyond that. But that
right.
they think they won and they can talk to me like that, that mockery infuriates me
Yeah.
because, I had to just cry out to God and say, they think they won, God, but please be the hero of the
Hmm.
story because
Right.
this is, you know what I mean? Like that mockery. They're standing with him in that mockery. Really?
Yes,
Right?
yes. So there's not love there. It's been
Right.
a lot of no one really knowing me, or really
Right.
everyone having their own agenda and their own needs
Hmm.
first
Hmm.
as a group, but individually. Like, does that make sense? It's all,
Hmm.
everyone is dysfunctional.
Well,
So I can't really say what
right.
the role
No,
is
that I think
besides
you
the one
did.
that
Right.
I'm made fun of. Yeah,
No,
that's
and
the bottom
I think
line.
that's good. And Carol, talk a little bit about your siblings because you know what have a feeling is that a lot of listeners are going to say, "Wow," because we're all kind of talking about the same dynamic. So, Carol, talk to me
Yeah.
about how your siblings treated you, like when you were in the home before you talked, and then when you came out. How did that shift happen?
Well, like I said, I was kind of the glue with the
Mm,
siblings. I'm the outgoing one, Um, and I to this day I'm shocked. I mean, like I've said, I've been out about this for 34 years.
wow. Yeah.
And my siblings are all these functional people, teachers, all
Hmm.
that. And they just don't believe me. And they stuck by my father like glue.
Isn't that
Yeah,
something?
so treating me, they're not the types that come right out and, blast me or anything. Everybody's
Hmm.
kind of very reserved, but their actions are so clear that they don't support me. My older brother just says dad was a wonderful man. That's really all I've heard in 30 plus years. And my sister is like, well, I just don't believe it. What's the big deal? Why do I have to believe it?
Mm.
Why do I have to take that role? And I said, well, if you don't believe me, then you're basically saying I'm mentally ill or I'm a liar.
Mhm.
Why would I be talking about the sexual abuse for so many decades? And, well, I just don't, believe it. I don't think it ever happened.
Wow.
My youngest brother is like, well, I don't know who's telling the truth. Dad said he never did it, so why should I believe you? Why, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
As if I'm doing
But your
this.
father was a physician and your father
Yeah,
had some
heart
money, right?
specialist.
Right.
What's
And
that?
your father had some money, I assume, in
Oh,
his. So
absolutely.
see,
And
there
yeah,
are all these reasons, you guys, that
Mhm.
people
yes, there's money.
stay. There's money. And I'm
Hmm.
telling you, and even if there's not money, but often it is where you stay, where I see people stay. But then it's because they have never developed themselves beyond
Yeah.
that dysfunctional
Mhm.
family unit, right?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
if you can't think outside of what your family is telling you to think, you need to go to counseling. You just, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
And,
do.
Well, and especially if
yeah,
it's all shrouded in religiosity, because that's
yeah,
Yes.
been with my family
Oh,
where like
yep.
it's
they
almost like the
hide.
They
family
hide there. Oh, it's
is
the
the God.
worst.
Like the
Yes.
family is the God. It's not actual truth. It's not
Yep.
actual
Yep.
love, and it's not true justice or anything
Yep.
that I believe God stands for. But there's such a pressure to forgive and forget
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
know that whole
I think that people bring,
mindset.
yes, they bring that religious spirit with them because guess what the religious spirit says? You guys can't really talk about this and we forgive. And when we forgive, we forget. That's the
Hmm.
spirit of
Mhm.
religion. That is not the God that lives in heaven. And you know what? These families love to bring it along. My family, oh, they all read the Bible, but they hate, they're full of anger. You know what I mean? Like I've never
Mhm.
seen
Hmm.
any love because Jesus says you'll know my people by their love. You know what, you don't see any of these fruits in their life, and so people
Yeah,
have to go beyond just what people's mouths are saying, right? But I
yeah.
think it's really important for these grown adults to speak something that's different than the parents, and I see it in my
Mhm.
own family. They all meet with mom and kind of they fight, but they all end up really keeping the same, that same dysfunctional mobile spinning round and round and round,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
they
Mhm.
can't get off the mobile because they don't even know how to stand without that family, and that's
Mhm.
why I think they
No.
need counseling.
Yeah, it's
Go
because they
read.
haven't they
Yes.
haven't had any counseling. I mean, like you look at
Yep.
I was talking to my sister about this, like she hasn't had counseling in all these decades. I mean, never
Exactly.
once. How much counseling have we had,
That's
where
right.
you
Oh,
go and you
collectively
learn?
between us, you guys, we have a lot, you know what I mean? And
Like
Yeah,
30,
yeah,
I've
let's
had
look at
like
those bills.
I don't even know. Yes,
I
the
don't,
bills.
yeah,
me
let's count
too.
up the bills. But you know
Mhm.
that they don't spend one day in a
Exactly.
Mhm.
counselor's office or reading a
And
book or
can I
doing
tell you this?
anything.
That's
Mhm.
chicken shit.
That's
Because you don't
chicken
have
shit.
it's chicken shit.
Betcha.
You do not have the strength to step into the story. So when the story
Hmm.
comes to you, what they start doing is batting it like a fly, like a bat came into your house. They're just trying to get it gone, get it out, get it away from me.
Yep.
I don't want to
I
hear
like
it.
that.
It has nothing to do with us, but it has everything. I
Mhm.
remember Redmond, the counselor I had for 20 years, he'd say, Jody, they don't hate you. They just want you to be quiet. Guess what?
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody puts baby in a corner. I'm not going to be quiet anymore. When I
No,
went
Mhm.
to
no.
sleep after
We
she
can't
called
be.
me, no, we can't. And after my
Mm-mm.
cousin called me and called me and called me and was just seething hate in
Uh-huh.
her
Mm.
sound,
Wow.
and I told my husband when I went to sleep, I'm so proud of me. 'Cause you know what? They can't stand the words that I
Yeah.
use. And I am so proud of me. And I said, I'm going to go to sleep. I didn't sleep that night because you know what, you guys, the truth is it's hard.
It still
It's
hurts.
hard.
We're just
Mhm.
trying to be the best people that we can be. And unfortunately, to be the best person I can be for my children, going back into what Carol said, this is not about my parents anymore or about my siblings. This is
Right.
about my future. This is about my children and my grandchildren because I
Yeah.
could not be there for my children when I didn't have my
Yeah.
story. You guys, I was so checked out. Redmond and
Mhm.
I started talking, and he said, Jody, your girls are triggers to you. And you
Hmm.
guys, because my mother, I had to abuse her as an adult, as a teenager, and she was an adult. every time my girls grew, that still triggered me. So it wasn't just like
Mhm.
gone because they were small. Do you know how
Yeah.
horrible that is for your adult girls to come and then all of a sudden I have this imagery of, vaginas and stuff because it's triggering to me. That's why people go away and don't go into healing, that you shouldn't stop, because I would actually be broken with my children right now if I had
Mhm.
stopped healing. I have to push
Mhm.
through all of those imageries, all of those triggers. Those are triggers
Mhm.
for the person listening.
And
My
I've had that
children,
too.
isn't it
Yeah,
terrible, Carol? Talk about
yeah.
it for a minute.
And small children, I mean, I can remember
Yes.
being around them and just like, like, God, what's going on? My
Mhm.
head is like, yeah,
Triggers.
you feel absolutely
You
nuts.
and you see imagery that comes back from those
Imagery,
things. It's
yeah,
terrible.
and it's I had to work on that a lot of,
Yes.
that this is different and that was then,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm not, there was nothing between us yet. And so it
no,
helped, right? And so that is pushing through your fear saying, I'm going to do this, right? Emily, have you
yeah,
experienced that triggers in your life when there's things that look the same and this imagery comes back that you're thinking, I don't want this imagery. What's happening?
yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think with my daughter, who is currently living through the years that I was actively abused,
yes,
It's
um,
so hard.
it's really interesting.
So
I
hard.
think I thankfully have done a lot of work, like a lot,
So
a lot of
cool.
mhm,
work.
Yes.
So I'm not having um like flashbacks or times of dissociation. I did when she was younger,
Hmm.
but I'm just marveling at the fact that I thought any of it was my fault. I'm marveling at
Hmm.
like what normal development
Isn't that
yeah,
of a
cool?
young child
I get to do
is.
that with my
And
grandkids.
I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's cool.
I never got to live this. And so there's a lot of grief in it
mhm,
too,
There is.
because seeing it and realizing, "Oh, man, I didn't have that part of my life and I never
yeah,
will." So
no,
I
you
think
didn't
that's
have a
more,
childhood.
no, and I think that's more what
Exactly.
I'm living through right now
Right.
and knowing. And then there's also with that next generation piece, the fact that I'm living in truth, my daughter's living in truth,
Yes.
but my
Yes.
sister's family is not.
Yeah,
And I'm not in touch with those children and her family because I can't be with her or my mother, who's very involved in their family, which is a whole nother
mhm,
Exactly.
problem.
Exactly.
So that's hard. That's really hard because I
yeah,
feel like I'm even putting myself in a place of safety for me, but then it's just making me look worse because I'm not involved in their lives, right? And then
Right.
my family can tell all the stories they want to
Hmm.
about me, and it is only confirmed by the fact that I'm not there with those young kids, and that's hard for me for sure.
It is, and we talk about the loss of family, but I will not entertain anymore that family component to come into my family now and hurt these
Right.
children, because I have
No.
heard in my family, I've heard so many stories of incest, of this kid doing this to that kid and this,
Right.
and stories. And
really,
Carol, just like you said, is coming up in your family, right? They don't want to talk about it, but there's other stories of incest in your family
yes,
too.
there
And
are.
so yeah, see, and
Mhm,
that's the truth. So the truth is everybody really does know these stories.
Mhm.
But I want to turn our attentions for just a second to, I want us to think about the intentionality around these pedophiles when they are giving themselves over to pedophilia and who they are before we ever happen into their world. This comes from my
Mm.
book, A Prisoner by No Crime of My Own, and it's on page 11. My father had this man that they were really lovers, but he also had a wife and children. And this man had a book that was dedicated to him and my father's relationship. And so this is talking about that book. It
wow,
says a professional, yes. And actually, when he went into a home, his nephew gave this book to me. That's how I got this book from this Craig guy.
wow,
So when you stay in the truth, it's kind of exciting the things that you get. So I say a professional photograph taken at the Stardust in Las Vegas, Nevada, is of my dad, Craig, and my mother. Now look at the date, you guys, dated December 7th, 1964. They'd taken a road trip together, the three of them. This night, the show was Lolito de Paris. I was 5 months old. I knew this picture very well. It had been displayed in my parents' house for years. The funny thing was, Craig had been cut out of the picture. This was the very last picture Craig ever put in his album of my mother and father. The album ended with my dad's obituary on December 8th, 2010. What happened during the missing 46 years? Their relationship lived on through their deeds of darkness and the unfinished business they'd left behind. My father, Craig, and my mother, the band of thieves had been created, and the quantum jump into rape, murder, and pedophilia was just a few steps away. That started in
Wow.
1964. You guys, I was 5 months old. Now, when you think about the
Mm-hmm.
intention of these
Mm-hmm.
people, and then you think that they've given this over, they were obviously doing sex together. I was in rooms with them when they all were naked together, and then they put a child in the mix of it with them. This is called intentionality. This is who they have
Mm-hmm.
chosen to be. Now you
Mm-hmm.
think when you confront them 40 years later or whatever, because that's usually when we all start confronting, they're going to say, oh, yeah, that's who I was. And oh, yeah, I'm going to change. Talk to me
Yeah,
about that. Do you
no.
see? This is
Mm-mm.
very
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
remember the intentionality of a pedophile. They give over, they make choices to become this. They're not going to
Hmm.
change. They're never going to tell you who they are, and they ain't changing. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've given over to evil. I mean, I think in my mind too, like, at what point do you cross that road? I mean,
Exactly.
I can't even imagine doing that, you know?
Mhm.
And yeah, they cross over to evil, and they're never going to, they're not going to be accountable. It's like this narcissistic personality. They are oh,
I'm so sorry.
that's all right.
Let me put myself on silent for a second.
Oh, okay.
That was my daughter's bedtime. So
Oh,
Oh,
just a
okay.
second.
Okay. Yeah, I think,
well, and you said, Carol, my dad, I told for how many years? 20 or so years you had confronted him?
30,
97, 30 years. So he was 67, he dies at 97. This man never apologizes and never
never.
changes. I
No.
need people that are listening to hear this because we really
Yeah.
want reconciliation. We want the love that we were never given. You know
Yes.
what the truth is? We're never going to get that love that we
Yes.
never got.
Not
I
from our
mean,
family.
not from our family, and
Uh-uh.
and I can talk about that, but yeah, and I do
Hmm.
want to end on a positive note, and I do have a way to do that, I hope. But it's so important for these hearts to just accept the reality that love is
Yeah.
not coming. Nobody's
Yeah.
coming. I can
The
remember
love is not
the
coming. I
love is
think that's
not coming.
really important. It's not going to come from the people you want it from. It's going to come
Exactly.
from yourself, from
From
your
conversations like
partner,
this, I get more
yeah.
support chatting with you guys
Yeah.
than I've ever
Yeah.
found in my family, and that's the truth.
And I think that's why I also think you have to grieve the loss. It is a
Yes.
huge loss.
Huge
It
loss.
that losing your siblings, your spouse, or your parents, of what you dreamed they could be,
Mhm.
and that you learn to live with it. But I
And
spent way too long hoping it was going to come.
this is why I love to do these things because
Yeah.
see, I was 5 months old. I had no choice in this, you guys.
No.
It was already set in motion for me not to be loved in life by my parents.
Yeah.
When we
Yeah.
go back to the reality of those kinds of statements that people go back and sift through and look for good. I'm just over that. Like I always tell people, I'm
Hmm.
just over sifting for good. There ain't any good there.
There
Sure,
ain't,
I
I
liked
think that,
brownies. Sure, I liked making cookies. Sure, I liked popping
yeah.
popcorn and watching movies with my family. I played Risk with my dad. I love playing board games. There's still
Yeah.
no good there. As far as I'm concerned, there's
Right.
just
Right.
no good there that supported me in
Mm-mm.
life.
There's a heart that has no accountability and
Yes.
no true caring for other people. It's about them, and it's whatever they were getting from sexually
Exactly.
abusing
And you
a
know the
child.
state yes, and the statements, Emily, like your mother said to you, the only thing she's doing
Terrible.
is setting up her story to be able to
Hmm.
be removed from her accountability. That's all that
Hmm.
is. It's all
Hmm.
that is. I mean, I remember, yeah, my mom said to me, when you came along, Jody, you were the fourth one, and I didn't want you. Yeah, I so didn't want you. I went back to work as soon as I could. I wanted to say, Mom, you know what? I already know you guys didn't like me. Do you really have to say those kinds of stories to me? They're just cruel, mean people. You
Cruel.
cannot be cruel and pet and sexually harm a child. I mean, some of, you think
No.
about these things. And so ask yourself the question, the listener, ask yourself this question: what is it that you think you're going to get from this family? We always want
Mhm.
reconciliation because we're trying to heal that piece inside of us. I don't want reconciliation with my family
Mhm.
anymore. I really don't. I don't want to set my heart against them,
Yeah.
but I don't want them. I mean, all they do is hurt me or mock me, or
Mhm.
I don't know. I have a lot of beauty in my life. I have a wonderful husband. I have beautiful children and grandchildren that they came here and we just spend time loving, and it's simple. And you know
Mhm.
what I mean? So if we grieve, it helps us move on, right? Emily, just talking about that and talking about knowing that your child is free now. That
Mhm.
doesn't that mean
Yes.
that's huge, knowing that your
Yes.
little girl doesn't have to have the caustic, toxic words from your mother. Those things are huge. Take the pedophilia out of it. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? They're just mean people.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's like that's our main job as a parent. Our
Yes.
biggest job is to keep our kids safe, keep them in a healthy environment. And you said the word simple, Jody. That's very interesting. That
Mhm.
when relationships feel simple, that's when they're
Yes.
healthy.
You know
Mhm.
what?
You
It's
know,
so true. I mean,
you
it is
know.
so true. All the kids came for my 60th birthday. I said, the only thing I want is
Oh,
my whole family in my home for my 60th. And we made it happen. And you know what, you
oh,
guys, we
good.
didn't want to go anywhere. We made snow cones. We had popcorn. I cooked
Oh,
6 meals a day. We made fires every night where the kids could come together
oh,
and be seen and talk. That's simple.
yeah,
Nobody talked about anybody when you left the room. No, you know what I mean? It
yeah.
wasn't, it was just love. And it wasn't anything
It's
profound. It
love.
was a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
butter noodles, it was a bunch of eating, it was a bunch of s'mores. It was simple. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what? They're safe. I don't have to worry. I'm going to tear up. I don't
Mhm.
Mm,
have to worry about what's going to happen to them when the door's shut at night. I know they're
Mhm.
yeah,
safe, and they're not
right,
around children who've been abused. You know what I mean? I know they're
Mhm.
right.
safe. That's huge, you guys. It's
And then,
everything.
none of our mothers were healthy
Oh, they didn't.
emotionally,
Mm-mm.
and they
No,
don't have to live through that.
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. That's
right.
exactly right. Well, we're at time. We're kind of over
Yeah.
time, but I just love these conversations. I
Mhm.
want to, when we talked about the love that we can find in life, this book, I just love John Eldridge, and he wrote this book called Moving Mountains, and it's called Praying with Passion, Confidence, and Authority. And he does this one, I'm going to try not to cry. He does this one, I'm just going to read a small part of it about praying to the Father, the Heavenly Father. And he says, Heavenly Father, thank you for loving me and choosing me before you made the world. You are my true Father, my
Mhm.
creator, my
Yeah.
redeemer, sustainer, and the true end of all things, including my life. I love you. I trust you. I worship you. So I just want
It's
to say
beautiful.
that, when I think about that, I think that before the beginning of the world, God loved me, and I get to actually have that be part of my story. So when I came in and learned that I find this photograph that even by 5 months old, my parents were so given over
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
the horrible ways of life, I had a God that had already chosen me too. So
Mhm.
we can begin to, when I actually now do meditation, like I've had this back thing and this hip surgery thing, I find myself now laying down and meditating on the good things in life. And you know what,
Mm.
you guys? I'm 60, and it's the first time in my life that I've been able to meditate forward on something positive. Like, I get to think about maybe what I might buy for my kids for Christmas. I've been surviving for so long. I haven't
Yeah.
done those simple things. Do you
Mhm.
guys
Yeah.
relate to that in any way?
Yeah, I think we've battled a lot in
A
life.
lot.
Mhm.
We've had to push so hard to get through, and it's harder to relax and yeah,
Mhm.
just focus on all the
Yes,
peaceful things and the good things,
exactly.
and yeah,
So
the
I
little
guess, our
things.
story is that yes, it takes courage. And yes, you have to stand and sail against the wind
Yeah,
time and time and time
time
again.
and time again.
But all of
Yeah.
a sudden, though, you start finding these streams of peace. And, I actually did a blog
Hmm.
post the other day and I said that, it's hard for me to find comfort in my own body because my body was so violated on so many times of being hurt. My brother raped me
Mhm.
at 15. That was very painful for me. A lot of pain has been injected on my
Yeah.
body since I was young, that it's hard to find
Mhm.
comfort, but weirdly, I can find peace. I'm working on the comfort, you guys, without
Good.
having some wine. And, I'm working on all those things, but you guys spend a little bit of time talking about that. There really is a difference between peace and comfort and all these different things, but I think peace is a far finer thing too, right? Than some of these,
Mm.
when we check out and go run after overeating, over drinking, over working out, like we've all talked about these
Mhm.
things. There are these coveted places of life that you can find and actually have. We're never going to be good. We're never going to completely get rid of all these things. But if we can douse some peace in there with it, isn't it kind of, it helps, right?
We deserve it,
We
and we
do.
deserve it.
We
You
do
know,
deserve it.
Mate, Mate, can't think of his first name, has written, he's a psychiatrist, has written a
Oh
whole
yeah, I
lot.
know him. Yes,
Yeah,
I know him.
and
He's
it's
very good.
amazing about the trauma and how it
Yes.
affects our
Yes.
bodies. And then,
Yep.
and when you survived so much trauma to your body, I think that is a huge, huge thing
It's,
to overcome. And
I
like you, yeah.
go ahead. No, keep going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think finding that peace and
Mhm.
that comfort. I have to work a lot on power within myself. It's not out there. The love,
Mhm.
what's going to fill the huge hole in me,
Mhm.
basically, has always been an issue for me. And it's so easy to reach outside of ourselves for
Yes.
something.
Well, because you
Um,
want that immediate comfort. You want that immediate stop. I
yeah,
want the pain to stop,
yeah, I want the pain
right?
to
I want the
stop,
pain to stop.
but
Emily,
it's
go ahead.
really getting centered, getting that, yeah,
Yes.
peaceful center, I think.
Yes. Nope, I agree. That's beautiful. Emily, do
Hmm.
you have some closing words? This has been a really nice conversation with you guys.
Hmm.
I really needed it tonight.
Well, first I wanted to say I apologize for that timer going off. I don't know what you
Nope, you
all
don't.
heard.
Stop, stop. No, nope,
All
I
no
right.
didn't even hear
apologies.
it.
Yeah, no, we
Okay,
didn't
good.
even hear it. No apologies. Keep going.
Uh, so I think I was just thinking about peace, and something that I've noticed for myself is since I have separated from my family, moved to a place where they don't even know where I am. I set up a sham PO box in a totally different
Did you
community.
really?
That's
Just
cool. Do you need
like
that safety?
trying to
Mhm.
completely separate myself. I have been able to sleep more than I ever have in my entire life.
Mm.
Yes. Oh, it's
Good
so
for
Since
you.
true.
infancy, like for the first time in my life, on a weekend, I can sleep for 9 or
It's
10
so
hours, and I've
cool.
never had that before, and I'm
Yes.
43 years old.
Hmm.
So,
That's a long time
I
without it. A
yeah,
long time
yeah.
without
Oh,
it.
yeah.
So just saying that to people who might be struggling with
Mhm.
sleep, and think about that, like what just
Exactly.
um I've experienced that increase in rest and the ability to rest, which I think
Good.
Mhm.
is really linked to peace because,
Yes.
for so long I was afraid to go to sleep. So,
Mhm.
Hmm.
mhm.
That's
Yep.
really
So now
beautiful.
I can sleep.
You know what?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yay.
after moving to Montana, I have to tell you, and being 10 hours away from my family, they all moved around me. It was horrible. You guys, I had so much anxiety. I had to drive by where that woman was murdered all of my life. I mean, it was just
Hmm.
2 miles from my house. Those things are difficult. And so I do think moving yourself away, I didn't know because I'm just a fighter, so I stay and fight. But when I really felt led by God to move, it was the right thing for me. I've really found more peace than I
Yeah.
ever knew. So thank you so much, ladies. We will do
Yes.
this. For the listener, we do this once a month. These are my people. Find your people. They
Hmm.
support me. I look forward to this time together. We love each other. If you have any topics that you'd like us to discuss, please send those to gracedxo@hotmail.com. I also put it out. You can find me on social media very easily. If you like what we're doing here, please support us by following or subscribing. That's how it works out here. And until next time, let's keep breaking pedophiles down one secret at a time. Love you
Yeah.
all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Protection over
Thank
your
you.
week.
Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Good night,
Mhm.
guys.
Bye bye.
Good night. Bye.